walking by and, he had people pulled over, maybe like one or two people.
Okay. Have you ever seen others being detained or arrested at the port of entry?
Driving, yeah. I've seen a couple, but, you really don't know why. You've just seen them handcuffed, being walked through. Yeah, that's pretty much it that I've seen.
When you see something like that, what sort of emotions do you feel?
Like, first I wonder what they did, but then again, it could be anyone that's just, maybe they're crossing with a fake green card or anything, considering what happened to my husband. Yeah. That's what goes through my mind. Like, okay. I wonder what they did. Yeah.
Do you feel that your rights are protected whenever you cross the border?
No, I'm pretty sure, thankfully, no one in my family has any criminal record, so I feel safe in that aspect that I know I likely won't get questioned. But I know at any point in time, they can pull me over. I could have my phone searched, my car completely searched. I could be taken to a room. I know there are stories of being taken to a room to be questioned. So that I always expect in the very, very back of my head that I have no protections about, not speaking to anyone or, don't look at my phone. Even though I have nothing to hide, I know that all that's out in the open for them if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Now, you are a U.S. citizen, and you're entitled to protections. However, you've had these very tough experiences at the border. Has that changed your perspective of what it means to be a U.S. citizen, especially in the borderlands?
Yeah, because before when I crossed when I was a kid, it was like, oh, okay, well, you're a U.S. citizen, you could just go through. And now it's not so much. Now it's just, it's kind of so-so. Okay, it doesn't really mean anything if you're a U.S. citizen because you could be treated just like those that are not, or even those that are just attempting to cross through the desert. You could be treated any which way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of went out the window.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of your son, do you feel that he has access to sort of the same benefits, whether they're social or even healthcare in the United States? Or if he gets sick, do you prefer to take him to Mexico?
For certain things, I prefer to take him here, especially because a pharmacy here is nearby. Mm-hmm. It's a 2-minute drive. Mm-hmm. But thankfully through my work, and that's another stress why I don't ever want to lose my job, is that I have good health care there, and we've gone for treatment for things like that across. Mm-hmm. But what I guess makes me nervous is in case we have an emergency, especially now with COVID, how do we get there quickly? Can we get across quickly? Especially last weekend that had a 10-hour wait time. For Century, it was a 2-hour wait time. See, baby. How, in case we have an emergency, how do we get across? I have no clue how to call an ambulance to get us across, what that would take. So there's different things where I think about him, how would I get him across to get him help? But, for the social, with his friends, like I said, it's just, as he grows up, I don't know if he'll miss out on those things. If he wants to, let's say, get his bike, I want to go to my friend's house. Oh, well, we can't because there's a lot of wait time. Mm-hmm. Or right now we're not allowed to because it's only essential, even though, let's say, in San Diego things are opening. Mm-hmm. So it's different things that come across.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been late to work? And if so, how did your supervisors or co-workers react?
There's been some coworkers who, I guess, don't take it so well just because they don't understand. Mm-hmm. So thankfully, my boss is understanding when she knows because it's not often. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the previous job I had prior to where I work now, she was also understanding because it wasn't often. They know and they see that I make every effort to get there on time.
Mm-hmm. Those coworkers that are not supportive, do they sort of make comments at you, or what sort of things happens that make you feel like they're unsupportive?
So my old job, one coworker, and I still remember that, he said, that's weird that there was, that you were late, because I wasn't late. And at that time, I only had Ray Lane and he had Sentry. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, well, obviously. And then now, now with my current coworkers, they live in San Diego, so I always tell them, oh, it's just your commute is different from mine. Mine could vary at any times, but they made certain comments of like, oh, well, you could change your schedule whenever you feel like, and our boss is flexible, so they could change their schedule if they wanted to. I don't know why they don't ask, but I just kind of let that slide because the communication is between me and my boss always.
Mm-hmm. So. Now, in this context, what does community mean to you, or do you find sort of like a safe space, whether it's at your job or elsewhere?
The safe space is with my family mainly. So I have a good support network with my parents, my husband, and his family or certain family members and friends that are in LA. We don't have very many people in San Diego, and just like my uncle, a couple cousins that are in Tijuana, and that's pretty much where I find like safe spaces, but not so much at work. I just keep it straight professional there, so they don't find like, especially coworkers, I guess, they start saying, oh, this could be an excuse or that, but yeah, I keep it strictly professional there.
And I don't know if there's been a lot of changes within the past, even just 2 years. I mean, in 2018, it was like the installation of more barbed wire and more militarization, right? Because it was like the arrival of, there's always been caravans. I mean, this is nothing new, but I think this was like a high profile one, right? What were your thoughts about like all of these events that took place and these changes that occurred at the border?
Like this, exactly that. It's always, especially because my husband's from El Salvador, they've always come that way. Even he said it, we've always come in groups because things that happen to us in Mexico, always. Why people are suddenly freaking out is something new. He's like, we've been here, especially Central Americans tend to hide a little bit more. They're a little afraid to show, not like in the U.S. where, oh, I'm Mexican, I'm Salvadoreño, I'm Hondureño. Here, they try to blend in, keep a low profile because, they get exposed and you have those attitudes of like, oh, you're gonna want it here, you want to get robbed, things like that. And the same thing with the Americans, they should have known that it's been that way for a long time. That reaction was just more show, especially with the president. Like, oh yeah, we're selling barbed wire because all these people are coming when they've been coming, for a long time already. Yeah, especially like my husband said during the war, during the Civil War that they had, tons of people came over at that time, and no one really remembers or never realized that they did.
Now, I mean, the reactions of Mexico were sort of mixed. Some people, I think most of the support came from U.S. advocates that sort of like came here. And then they changed some hearts, I guess. But then I think most of the response was met with hostility and for the first time, even like an actual protest, right? What was it like for your family to witness like this? I mean, hostility, anti-Central American hostility has been a problem, especially in the South. If you go to Tapachula, it's always been, a lot of racism there. But I think in Tijuana, it was sort of like, it occurred, but I think it was the first time it was like so out there, And what was it like for your family to witness these things?
Just shocking, especially because Tijuana actually has been really nice to my husband. Like, he's gotten so many opportunities. He still continues to have opportunities. Like, they ask, oh, can you do this work? Because he works in construction, so he's constantly constantly being seeked out to do work, even now that he has legal status. So he was just shocked, like, if only people knew there were more of us here, people wouldn't, like, behave that way. There's a lot of, if only people knew that there were a lot of Central Americans that came here that work, making all this living. They're not, that thought that the Americans have all that were gang members and all that nonsense. So it was just a shock.
Okay. And with these sort of like mobilizations that occurred, do you feel like your husband has sort of like hid that part of his identity because of all the stigma and the racism that is in Mexico? Yeah,
at least at that time, yeah. He was just, especially because the accent is very out there, very distinct from ours. So there are certain times where it's like, okay, well, I, don't really speak, or I'll speak